Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I got some slides together and a few things. I can go ahead and share those
Yep.
too. Like Chris said, we've got a chance to sync up during a when I was working at the Cloud Native Computing Foundation or CNCF, the Linux Foundation, and we were doing a couple events called Zero to Merge, which is teaching people how to make their first contributions to open source. These are people right out of school or within a corporate job and just wanted to contribute to open source for the first time. So many different walks of life and stories, people. It was just a lot of fun. I don't know if they're still continuing that forward so much anymore, just with all of the other things going on and then AI cropping up. But that those course lessons and everything, if anyone's interested, I'm more than happy to share those with you. They're still under the CNCF organization, if I remember correctly. But I ended up leaving the CNCF. When was that? Like the beginning of last year. It was very bittersweet. Part of me really didn't want to go because I just felt so at home within the CNCF and open source community. And then another part of me just wanted to jump a little bit deeper into some of these AI focuses and things. So I'm on, I think it's N+2 jobs since the CNCF. I'm working as head of open source at a company called Dosu, where I get to talk to maintainers every day. And we work through things like documentation, project knowledge, how to share that out, how to use MCPs in the age of AI, and so many other things. I'm going to cover some of those topics and learnings that I've had while at Dosu with you today. And more than happy to share that PDF, answer any questions that you may have. I don't want to talk to you for the next 50 minutes and not hear what you have to say. So please feel free to raise your hand, throw something in chat. I'll take a look at it. Would love to answer your questions in real time. Feel free to stop me. And with that, I guess we'll get started. So today I'm going to be talking about open source, specifically in the age of AI, where I think we have a bit of a toil problem. But good news is that we've had at least three different projects solve that problem from what I could see. So I'm going to take a brief pivot here in the beginning of our session. And some of you might know George Castro. If you have worked within the cloud native ecosystem at all, George works at the CNCF as I think he's head of developer relations now. But one thing that I want to pin in your minds today, at the beginning of this session, is that George has always been a fantastic community member. He's one of the reasons that I worked within the Kubernetes community. And all the way back, many internet years ago, in 2011, the Ask Ubuntu community raised this question about George Castro. And spoiler, George is not a robot. He never has been, but he seems like one. He seems like an absolute machine when it comes to community, being able to reach out to people and engage with them. So pin that in your memories right now, bookmark that. We're going to come back to George at the end, and I want to share a little bit about that as we go through all of these topics together. Okay, so some of you might have heard of the word toil before. This was a word coined by Google, mostly for their site reliability engineering or SRE teams. What toil means to them and the way that they're defining this are tasks that are manual, repetitive, automatable, devoid of enduring value, and they scale linearly with the service or time. When we take a look at that definition and compare it to open source, we might see some trends here. I definitely did taking a look at this. If you go and read GitHub issues, if you read through a mailing list, all of these other contexts and facets, you'll start to see some things that are transitive here. Like if something's repetitive, where are those docs again? Or things that might be automatable. Some things that open source projects don't necessarily get the time or the focus to be able to do, unfortunately, in many cases, but it's changing. Let's talk about case number one of those three projects, Bluefin, which is a Linux distribution run by three maintainers, and they decided that they were done with their toil problem. They took a look at some AI tools and some other things they've been working with us at Dosu, And well, let me just take a look at some of the numbers with you. So Bluefin, very popular project, lots of big numbers. When we take a look at weekly active users or systems checking in, all these image pulls and just a lot of data served over the wire. This is a lot for 3 people and to manage and to work with this community and to grow it. But don't worry, George Castro is involved with this project. He's still very much a machine of a person. And even with George on the team, it was a 42-hour average time to first response for people opening issues initially. And then George reached out to and heard about Dosu. He said that, he took a look at some AI tools. He doesn't want a tool to know about everything on the planet, which is what many of the vanilla types of AI integrations that you can set up will do. You might just want a toothbrush and then it will bring the whole store to you. You're like, no, no, no. I just wanted information about this one thing. And that's what we do at Dosu, and what we've seen is really helpful for open source maintainers. The project's voice needs to take priority in these kinds of interactions, especially for people coming to a project for the first time, right? You probably don't want to open up an issue and hear from a bot, or whether customer service or open source. I think that we can do a lot better here. So before, when George was just working with those other 2 maintainers and interacting with the community, like I said, that took about 42 hours for people to get a response, which is great to get, but you start to lose people if you don't respond to them quickly. After using a tool like Dosu, much faster, right? 2 minutes, 22 seconds, love the triple twos. So much faster. This is mostly conservative. This is looking at worst case too. But ultimately, when working with the community, I've had many talks with George. He said that the communities felt a lot more engaged and like they can ask whatever question comes to mind. They're more curious. They want to explore. They want to interact or help build rather than just kind of sit, wait around. And then if you don't get back to people fast enough, things just take a much longer amount of time. So I've plenty more numbers, and I'll move through these slides a little bit more quickly so we can have some time for questions at the end. But yeah, if you have any questions about the data or anything like that, please let me know. So George, with Dosu and AI, and now in this weird intersection of AI and open source, George hasn't had to write a systemd unit service within 6 months. Last time I talked to him, it's probably longer now. But just thought that that was something that was really cool to see. A lot of people, I'm sure you might have heard, are starting to kind of get away from writing daily code tests and things like that. I've got certain feelings about that. I kind of think it's sad. But at one point in time, I think that we can get a lot more done or explore these things that we might never have gotten the time to do, especially with an open source, a place that needs a lot of help. So what's successful about Bluefin and what we got to see in that case was response time. We got to see a huge amount of scaling down happen. Not throughput, not code, but response time. That's something that's really important as it pertains to open source projects, is just how fast can you get engaged with your users, even if it's not person-to-person interaction. Just getting the answer through a search bot or something else might be just exactly what you're looking for, what your team needs. All right, case number 2, we have ask.cncf.io, which I will share a little demo about that here at the end. But this one was near and dear to me. I joined Dosu at the end of September last year, so just in time for KubeCon Atlanta here in the States. CNCF at the time was managing over 200, I think 20 plus projects. So glad they gave us a call and reached out. We had just shy of 10,000 people in person at the conference, and Dosu was shown to a lot of the maintainer team before the conference officially opened up. So we got a lot of great feedback from maintainers just before the conference opened. and we were able to kind of work with them and the rest of the community throughout the conference. This was everything from where can I go and find breakfast, to where does this talk take place, to people bringing this home with them and asking questions after the conference, which was really cool. What is Kubernetes? Or you hear about open telemetry while you're at this conference. You come home and you have more questions that aren't so much location based as they are about the project itself, which we were able to help out with. If you can't tell, I'm very excited to work for a place like Dosu because I don't think that there are many tools available to maintainers or people that work within open source that solve a wide array of problems like this. Some more numbers. We had 224 people of the 9,000 ask questions within our platform. We answered close to 450 of those questions. Success rate means that we had a citation or fact to share back with someone that was answering or that was asking those questions. So in a small subset of that, we didn't have data available for them, unfortunately. And then response time, we got back to them within a minute. The team worked very hard to reduce that latency there. So that was fun to work with. So many people see the questions that were coming in, and then across many different languages too, right? This wasn't just English. This was many different languages all throughout the world, not just people that were at KubeCon, but that conference. But again, we're just all over the world kind of asking questions about what was going on. The benefit to using tools like Dosu or trying to figure out agentic solutions to your project, the things that are near and dear, close to you, that you want that deep level of knowledge on, so you can ask it about something that happened a week ago. You don't have a knowledge cutoff. What we've seen is that while these models just keep getting smarter and smarter and more capable and helpful in some cases, in many others, there's not good context within the model, or that hasn't been surfaced yet to people, which makes it very frustrating to work with, especially when you ask, hey, what's the date? And then you get, a couple of years back, or it doesn't know about the TV show or whatever else you ask questions about. So again, very fun to work on a project where we've paired memory with the model's capabilities. In this case, in this project with the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, we were able to scale that knowledge and provide information to people at any hour of the day that they would have taken them quite a bit longer amount of time to actually go search out or find or try to go ask people at the help desk, and it didn't need to be staffed 24/7. So everybody got to win on that front. Last, but certainly not least, Docling, one of the largest open source projects in terms of community throughput that we've gotten to work with at Dosu. This project came out of IBM Research. I believe most of the team is in Zurich, and similar to what I was sharing with Bluefin, 4 maintainers. And lots and lots of issues and pull requests and people opening up issues and trying to understand what's going on with the project or fit it into their workflows. So it made me laugh when we were working on a case study with Michele Dolfi of the Docling maintainer team, and he said that there are just tens of notifications every single morning waiting for him, which didn't help because he had his regular job to do too. As of today, we have gotten to handle many different conversations within Dosu, helping out the Docling team and many open source developers. And I think all of these are conservative too. I think there's a few other projects that we're helping out with too, but I left those out. Just kind of kept what some of the bigger projects looked like. And then what we found that's interesting is you start to talk about AI, people can get uncomfortable. And admittedly, I don't think it's worthwhile to put a lot of trust into something that you don't quite understand. By being able to kind of take things slowly, right? I've driven a self-driving car. I've been lucky enough to be able to do that or go in a Waymo here in the States. And very concerning the first couple times you do that. Then once you start to develop confidence with that, you feel a lot better. But you still need that personal experience, right? So what we've done at Dosu is we have mention mode to start things off. So Dosu has a lot of agentic and automatic capabilities. I've seen this with many other projects too. Great to be able to build trust and go slow. Only do something when I, mention you. Uh, Really helpful. And then next, auto draft is what we have. Again, seen this done differently through different products that work in the AI space. But in this state, Dosu can respond to issues or people, but it will draft it. It won't actually send it. That still is reliant upon a person, a human. And then lastly, auto reply. Okay, I feel comfortable. Dosu, just go for it and start responding to people. This is where we love seeing people end up, that they've built that confidence. Everything works for them. Everything's been tuned. And then they're off to the races and saving a lot of time, being able to focus on what's a little bit more useful to them. Architecture, pull request review, their day job or vacation, going to sleep. This can be helpful. So the moment that Michele found a lot of value in using AI to help out with open source, and Dosu specifically, he said it was seeing someone interact with Dosu on an issue and get to a place where they were like, I figured it out. And then the issue was closed by the person that opened it. So it's love these success stories and things like that being able to happen. Um, this also helps with unexpected things that happen, especially at large companies too. So Michele working for IBM, IBM announced Granite Docling, and so that was something that was kind of new to his team. He was not able to handle the amount of people that had reached out, but again, by having this kind of support, the scalable support, that was helpful to be able to have a solution that was able to respond and keep everybody sated as far as what questions that they were looking for. And then what's great is you can have some really wild questions in your communities, and AI does not hesitate. It's not always right, but when it is, it's fantastic to see somebody ask a wild, off-the-wall question or just have an experience that's incredibly notable and to be able to have something get surfaced, right? So this is interesting to see somebody processing a very large PDF packet and then for Dosu to respond and to say, hey, I think I have a solution for you here.
Sorry,
So
I have a question. So you
yeah,
basically feed those with documentation, or also have access to, let's say, your source code of your projects, and both. It's a combination of code plus documentation. What's kind of how do you define content? How do you define the URLs around the project itself? So can you explain a bit about that, please?
yeah, of course. Great question too. It's something that we think about quite a bit at Dosu is what is knowledge, especially now? What are facts? What's useful? I have a few examples that I can speak to at the end, more on the technical side, but at a
Okay.
very high
Yep.
level, what we ingest is GitHub events. So yeah, basically, you add a Dosu as a GitHub app. And then we can listen to all of the webhooks and different events that happen to a repository.
Mm.
We have other integrations like Slack. So we can get, should you so choose, you can pull in public conversations or even add Dosi to a private conversation, private channel, and be able to pull in all of this information. And then Dosu remembers that based on how we store that and make it retrievable for you. You can use an MCP. We have an MCP server, so you could actually pull that knowledge into your agentic runs, and it's incredibly powerful. I'm still working with some maintainers on this, but I think it's incredibly powerful to be able to steer people in the community in the direction you might need help rather than, hey, I think I found an issue, and then it just happens to be hallucination or something that's not valid. So by pulling in all of those relevant data sources across GitHub, Slack, GitLab, we support many more web sources, search, etc. That's how we can get that very specific and very deep kind of knowledge, as well as thinking about things like information aging out. A lot of things, like my birthday is May 25th. That's something that you could have a time to live, a TTL for, a long time. Whereas what did I have for breakfast? That might only be relevant for like the next 4 hours, or in my case, two. I don't always remember it. So thinking about, it, knowledge almost as though it's like a session that you manage and then have to renew or re-authenticate. Um, it's a really wild mode of thought, but that's how we're seeing a lot of this information work, at least with AI systems, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question. And then I've got some more technical things I can share on that front too.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Cool. So where was I? So yeah, lots of with Docling, it's mostly about issue triage and being able to answer people back. So kind of serving more that customer support type of role. And what's fascinating to see, I'm excited. I'm going to be writing a blog post on this. It's been very interesting to see. We used to be able to go look at a lot of GitHub issues and discussions and take a look at the communications, the conversations that were happening, especially in open source, right in GitHub, or we go to Stack Overflow, right? But now what we're seeing is that a lot of those conversations are starting to shift into more private kinds of contexts, people chatting directly with agents, or that's mostly what you're seeing. You're seeing people try to explore and figure things out on their own, and they're using agents or talking to LLMs in many cases, just having these one-on-one conversations, which is not quite helpful for the community, unless you're tracking it. And again, using something like Dosu, where should you so choose, you can share that back with your team or create documents that are helpful based on your findings. With Docling, what they're seeing is that less conversations are happening over in GitHub, far more are happening within Dosu. But the good news is that the maintainer teams are able to get some sense into what are the topics being talked about, not the search history directly, but is it a Python thing that people are talking about? Do we need to worry about Python 3.14? Does it break anything? Right? Starting to surface some more uh, just emergent types of things within the behavior that's going on within the community. And what we're seeing is that, docs are the support channel now, both for humans and agents. I hope that people still read out there. It's one of my favorite things to do. But we're all short on time, so time can be hard to come by. And by getting some help from agents on that front, if we don't have information that's fresh, we're going to have trouble supporting those SLOs and knowing what the right thing to do is. I suspect that's why we're seeing a lot of outages and other things across the internet, is because people don't have the right context at the right time, which is a little bit easier to do. Good news in open source, but harder to do depending on the size of your team or budget or ability to find some tools that can be helpful there. So three things that haven't really scaled over time has been code generation, which we might have figured that out a little bit, governance, and team size. But if we start to think about how we can pull in agents on that front, we don't want to replace people. We want to be able to give maintainers and others within the ecosystem back their attention. Let's get back to life and being able to explore and learn and do things, rather than feel locked into a lot of the things that we're being asked to do. So let me see, time check. Okay, I still got some time. How do we do this? A lot of people, well, I'll stop there. Does anyone have any questions? I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but want to make sure that I leave some time for questions and other things. Cool. But yeah, if anything comes to mind, please don't fret. I promise my bark is much worse than my bite. We're all we're all good on that front. Okay. So how do you drive agents? How do you build something like Dosu or any kind of AI project? Even if it's just automation that you're trying to make a little process or something better about your day-to-day work, at home, wherever. What we're finding is that agents.md, it's markdown. It's markdown. Kubernetes, it's YAML. AI, it's markdown. What's going on? We always have a documentation type that we use for this. And then there's a lot of banter about HTML being an even better output, but we could talk about that one later. But when it comes to what is everyone else doing right now, it's focusing on this agents.md or markdown file. So let's talk about how we can think about writing these types of agents.md files in an effective way. Um, so commands, structure, workflow. Just order is really the biggest thing that we're seeing when it comes to construction of these files. If you add in things as far as how your team's code style is or what kind of testing that you want to do, I highly recommend asking your agents to write tests before you actually code something out or plan, because then it's working towards something that's a set goal rather than something that is a little bit more nebulous. If you ask AI, why isn't 2 and 2 5 when you add them together? It can write you a 20-page document on why it should be 5. So again, trying to get something that's deterministic and an actual goal that you can align to is going to be very helpful. And last but not least, these clear boundaries. What not to do, very important. What not to put on your sandwich, very helpful on that front. What we've seen is that a badly written, poorly written agents file is worse than none at all. And in many cases, just eliminating that agents file can actually be better because the right context is getting loaded into the project, your agent run, before you actually start writing code or generating things on that front. So very interesting kind of thing. It's like, just if you can't do it well, don't do it, is kind of the advice there, but very helpful. I've seen this happen many times. Many times I've thought I've written something that was going to be helpful. Nope. It wasn't. Did much better without it. So it was humbling to see at the very least. There are some interesting examples and patterns. I can share more about these later, or if you want to reach out. But interesting to see, if you're overly vague, if you are using the wrong testing framework, or let me go back, or you don't give the right instructions on where to find something because it's outdated. There's many different failure modes that you can run into with an AgentsMD, and it is very hard to keep up to date in line with your code as well. Even when asking your LLM as you're working with it, like, hey, keep this up to date, doesn't guarantee that it will be. That's one of the other things that we're working on at Dosu, and we can help out with those kinds of contexts. As always, I think for people familiar with Marie Kondo, if it doesn't bring you joy, throw it away. Same thing for your agents files. If you deleted this with an agent, do anything differently. If not, you should throw it away. It might be helpful. When taking a look at docs as a whole, across as many open source repositories as we can find, very interesting research that close to about 30% of GitHub repos within their documentation mention a function, file, or class that doesn't exist anymore. And in many cases, information is outdated for close to about 5 years. Which is wild. And I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have run across documentation at some point in time in your lives and seen that, nope, that's wrong, or I don't know what they're talking about, or there's only 2 screws in the box, not 5. Same kind of thing that we're seeing across the internet. And that's one of the things that we want to, at least at Dosu, make better. I've seen in the open source community, people want to make this better and reduce what's wrong out there, be more helpful, and allow people to be more productive. At Dosu, we take a look at documentation through many different lenses, but some of the most helpful ones to think about are Git age. So, what changed when, what's going on with the team? When you start to think about change in a temporal sense over time, all of these little data points, was somebody having a good day, a bad day? Was it raining outside? Was the team going through something challenging? Was there an outage, right? You get hints of this within Git history and code, and even down to what machine is somebody running on. We're starting to get a little bit more information with things like SBOMs, software bill of materials. But you just learn a lot of interesting things when you take a look at the time factor within code, communities, and life. It's fascinating. If you've ever run git blame, that's also very helpful to see who changed the thing that might have broken your thing. But yeah, this is something that we'll take a look at, and data, knowledge, documents, as time goes on, we start to see them rot or become less poignant, less correct, unless we can actually figure out what the facts are or what the citations are within the document. Taking a look at per documentation TTL, like I was talking about earlier, getting a sense for, quick start guides, those probably have a shorter shelf life, whereas architecture might be longer. It's not often that you'll change your database type, from SQLite to Postgres to MySQL. Typically, that will stay static, but it also has a shelf life too. And then symbol drift, which is kind of the little bit more interesting problem, is what kinds of function calls or classes, or what's the shape of this code within this project, and how does it relate to a document or something else, right? Just because we have function calls and classes and ways to connect things together doesn't mean that we don't have docs that are also connected to that, or different kinds of knowledge. Just because you change a function name and get all of the things within that file all set and good to go, doesn't mean it might not knock out a tutorial or community article that was written, somewhere else, depending on how you version things. So lots of things to think about. But this determinism, or things that always given the same inputs give the same output. So I always know 2 and 2 will be 4 when I add them together. Same kind of thing here. These are all deterministic qualities, whereas AI is more stochastic, a little bit more random. Even if you turn that temperature value down to 0, you can't guarantee it's going to say the same thing every time. I have a few tutorials, one of which I tried to quantify freshness within docs. And I have this on a only dole / overdue. I have a slide here at the end if you want to take a picture, or I could distribute the PDF later. It's really interesting problem to think through. How do you solve this? How do you do this for your docs? I did it for a Python library and a little game that I made for Dosu, just to kind of help illustrate the thought. Not what we do in Dosu directly. We have a lot of other algorithms and things, but just one way to think about it, whether open source or otherwise. And then trying to think about how to keep things cost conscious within the age of AI is also something that can be quite difficult. So trying to figure this out too was an interesting problem to solve. And I wrote up a little blog post about how you can think about this and figure out a semantic layer, because just because a document is 60 days old, it tells me something, but it doesn't let me know if it's good or bad or out of date within some of the things that it might reference. You do need a semantic layer sometimes, and an AI is great at that for trying to figure out what kinds of doc gaps exist, but many different factors to consider. And then this is kind of what the alert looks like within this demo repository, showing, like, hey, Taylor, you lost 4 points. you completely took out a document that was helpful and that was solving some problems. All right, so back to George. Like I shared in 2011, the community asked if he was a robot. Again, he isn't. He still isn't. And now George is taking AI and using it to help out with things like the community, but trying to figure out how to bundle this directly into the operating system. So people can actually have this option where they go and query Dosu right within a Linux operating system on their computer to get this guidance, to get a better experience overall. And this is something that I think we can do more of within the open source space. Again, goal has never, ever, ever, ever been less people, no people, trying to automate all the things. It's trying to figure out how we reduce toil and make things better for us so that we can improve that quality of life and open source community and just build awesome things together. And with that, I would love to open it up to questions. But thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate the space, the time, and yeah, happy to talk about anything, AI, open source, etc. Uh, cool. Got a question from Chris. Hey, Taylor, here's a question. With AI tools being heavily used, has George seen his daily working hours reduced yet? Um, Great question. The honest answer, no. George is if you haven't met him, I recommend it. He would very likely take your call, or you could find him in Kubernetes Slack or CNCF Slack mostly, or many different Discords. But George is a very enthusiastic, excited person, and so he's always looking for things to do. So while George is a little bit different than most people, given that his workload has reduced in certain areas, it's expanded in others, and he's just a very excited person, similar to me. So not slowing down at all, but it definitely has given him time back to go and explore these other things. To answer your question directly.
He is still safe.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to slow down. Of course, Chris, anytime.
How do you so with the AI, so one of the kind of hot conversations in the open source ecosystem is kind of the impact of AI, right? So it's basically how it's somehow it's at some point completely something that open source leaders are not being able to even manage at all in terms of the volume, right? So in terms of the requests, how do you see this impacting in the quality of documentation and kind of all the content that those open source projects somehow are having to manage today, comparing with the past in the past few years? So do you still see that impact in documentation, or that's still driven by human in terms of what's the message that the open source project want to put to the community itself?
I think that I've seen a lot of different reactions to how open source communities decide to tackle the AI problem because I say problem because in many ways it is by having a lot of pull requests opened when you didn't used to see half
Mm.
of that volume in the past. Things that might not be relevant, people that didn't read the contributing.md file, right? There's a lot of open source. I know, at least for me, it was really scary. The first time I started to get involved, I was like, what if I do something wrong? What if I reach out to the wrong person? What if my code's not right? What if, even when it's just documentation, what if I mess something up? It was what really concerned me. I quickly learned that, like, no, you can open a pull request and you can talk with people and you can iterate and work through things. And AI has kind of sped up that process. So unfortunately, maintainers don't typically have a lot of time to be able to give back to the community while they're in a popular project, reviewing things, trying to work on architecture, leading community meetings, in many cases, working their day job too. They just don't have that kind of space to be able to mentally place everything, take care of themselves emotionally. There's a lot. It can be done. It's very difficult to do. So they will do things like turn off pull requests altogether. They might take an open source project and convert it to a private one. They might be able to scale up their team and increase throughput, or use a tool like Dosu to be able to help out community engagement, first line of engagement, and then only bubble things up once it's something that's incredibly relevant towards architecture or the direction of the project. Those are the kinds of things that I've seen. I don't fault certain projects because they're doing what they think is best for them. Even in the case of changing over to something that's not open source anymore, it makes me sad. But there are reasons that people will do things like
Mm,
that. I hope that we can all figure it out together and again get that time back. But it is a difficult problem, especially when it's so cost prohibitive. And we have awesome open source models and models you can run on your computer today. But I don't think until we see something that's like able to run on a Raspberry Pi or very low budget hardware, once we see that, then I think we're going to be in a really good place. But I think that's going to still be a couple of years. And until then, we can try to figure out some patterns or playbooks that might make sense. Um, cool. Chris asked if we could see some demos for Dosu. Yeah, of course. I've got it up in a screen over here. So CNCF, this is where I used to work and worked with Chris while I was doing the Zero to Merge course. This is Dosu. So we've created, I've got the CNCF space up here. Let me bump this up a little bit. And we've created documents like you could start here, you can read through things. This was written by George and myself ultimately, but Dosu and CNCF team. In some of these updated buys, you might even see Fippy, one of the CNCF characters. So shh, don't tell anybody, that's an Easter egg. Um, but see, you can still have fun with things too. But this is Dosu. These are the documents that we've created. Let me see. If I go in here, I can ask a question to Dosu. So we have some seed questions here, but OpenTelemetry is a project in the CNCF that just graduated. I think it was about a week ago. So tell me more about telemetry, and when it graduated. All right. So I can ask this question and then Dosu, whether through you can connect via your MCP server and get access to your organization. Soon we're going to have a lot of open source repositories and libraries available to everyone. Right now it's you set up Dosu and it's per organization. But soon it's going to be that you can connect to all of these open source types of knowledge. And what's private within your organization too. So lots of different ways that you can slice that up or do some role-based access control, essentially, RBAC. Um, so I'll let this run. Sometimes it can take a second. I'll probably be done in like 2 minutes. But let's go over here. So I
So, so,
have
I have a question. So with the CNC, particularly with the CNCF one, so how do you implement those two inside the organization? So you install on their own service, or you provide like a like a cloud solution that they redirect to you. How is the integration, and also how do you access their documentation?
for CNCF, what we do is let's see here. Do I have CNCF? don't think I do. No problem. I could show you here in mine. So this is one of my demo repositories. Same kind of thing for CNCF,
Mm,
where they have added our GitHub app to the CNCF organization and turned it on for all of their repositories. So we can pull all of the things going on here from GitHub CNCF. So I think it's something like 159, 57 repositories, something like that. But all of these repositories we're listening to and pulling in all of those events. And so, by doing so, we're able to get information to be able to answer questions like this. Or if you wanted to write up documentation, you could jump in here, uh, hit new, generate document, and then generate a document about the history of Kubernetes. And then Dosi would go and write that for you. Um, some of the other things that we've seen helpful too are templates. So we've put together some from the ecosystem that we've seen be helpful, like that AGENTS.md that I was talking about earlier. You can just let Dosu manage that for you. And as new code comes in on that pull request where there's new code, Dosu can suggest documentation that needs to be updated, or some other things that you might be able to consider, comments within your code that might be missing, or their knowledge or information gaps, essentially. And then, okay, so Dosu got back to us about OpenTelemetry, graduated May 7th, or it was accepted. It graduated May 11th. So that was what, like 16 days ago? Tells you where exactly that happened with citations. So I could actually click in here, and this is going to bring me out to a CNCF page. That's just one of the sources within the GitHub repositories that we'll pull. And
mm.
then we could see some other training resources too. Because I think the instructions in terms of these responses that the CNCF staff have set up are be helpful, provide other guides about training, events, and other things like that too, which is really helpful for an AI system when maintainers can be the ones that decide what gets added to the end of this. Do you want training? Do you kind of want to? Is there an effort that's going on? Is there an event that you're having? Is there a survey that you want people to fill out? You can add those things into your response instructions here. Let me see here. Do, do, do. Not in spaces. Let me go to connections, customize, and then I think it's an input, output. Sorry, we just changed a whole bunch of settings, and so I still don't remember where everything is, but I'll know before too long. Is it guidelines? Yeah, here it is. So here in agent guidelines, you're telling Dosu about what the project is. Response is what you want it to say back to people and things you want to consider. And then this is just some other notes for Dosu, like, hey, this project's cool. I think in terms of weighting, this is what's most important to kind of fill out. And then Dosu's available for free for open source projects because we want to help out in this space. And then we ultimately make our money when we get embedded within an enterprise, and then we'll help people make sense of their documentation. Or we integrate with Notion and Confluence and other systems like that. So we've helped out people migrating data or trying to validate certain things or compliance. But a lot of what we do is pertinent to code and like what happened last week. What's the change log? Trying to make sense of some things. But yeah, that's kind of Dosu in a nutshell. And then one of the things that we're most proud of is this ability to cite different pieces of information, which is something that a lot of earlier AI or LLM solutions just didn't provide. We really want to focus on giving you facts rather than something that looks plausible but isn't true.
In terms of the team itself, so you were born as an AI company, right? So it's not that what's the vision of the company in terms of the AI space, in terms of how did you guys build your team? So what's the role? So it's a one person company. are you 10, 100? So how it's working, and what are the main roles inside of those type of companies?
I think that we're about, I want to say we're like between 13 to 16 people now. I think when I joined, it was like closer to just over like 10 people.
Mhm.
And Devin Stein, the co-founder or the founder, CEO, he, I think that he was, I'm biased, but I think that he was really smart in trying to make sense of, do I create an open source tool? Because Devin's worked a lot within the open source space. Or do I make this a closed source tool, but offer it to open source ecosystem individuals or projects? And when you do that, open source is not typically where you make a lot of money, but it is a great place to get visibility, help people out, like actually test the impact that your tool might have. And then being able to sell to enterprises, mostly startups or mid to large size companies that just have problems finding where their docs are. There's tools like Glean and Mintlify and all of these others that might just help out with one of the things that's a problem. But with Dosu as a whole, we're really thinking about this as knowledge infrastructure. And so being able to pull in all of these different types of connections. So if I go here to connections, if I wanted to add one, here are some that we have right now. Being able to integrate with these pull in data and information and not just not be searching in every single one of these atomically is kind of what we want to do. Surface docs make life easy for agents and humans, and then start to get analytics and understand like what documents are cited most, or what are people using. This is just for my little demo project, so you don't really see anything here. But
Mhm.
today we just released this analytics view so that people can get a little bit better insight into what their communities look like and what's going on there, whereas they wouldn't have been able to see that before necessarily. GitHub, unfortunately, doesn't make a lot of these tools public, or they might have the data behind the API, but you don't get to see this visualized so that you can better understand what your community looks like. And you can do better planning as a maintainer or project owner. So those are the kinds of abilities that we want to be able to hand to our customers and other people within open source, is just something that makes life more manageable and create knowledge infrastructure is what we're trying to coin.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because from my perspective, the knowledge was always a very critical piece of every organization in this era, right? So it's basically, I'm not talking about the AI era. I'm talking the last probably 15, 20 years. So basically, the whole economy is around knowledge. And I personally think that organizations didn't really put the knowledge as a capital of the organizations in the position that should be, right? Because it's basically you have people have knowledge, and the organization at some point uh, is a showing of knowledge from all those people, but organization not always manage that knowledge in the right way. And one of the probably uh, most important conversations right now with this AI era is, okay, where is your knowledge? How have you been managing your knowledge? And seems to be more like a cultural challenge rather than the technological
Yeah.
challenge itself, right? So it's which is I think that it's a good thing, but so it's interesting that many organizations had been focused on the day-to-day business, and they many of them didn't really put emphasis on the knowledge itself, which is somehow the kind of the engine to actually make them work. So it's yeah, hopefully you guys are in the right place on
We
this
we hope the same. Yeah, like you said, for people that remember what the intranet was, like all of the internal internet of a company, like to me, that's the joke that I'll make, is like
Yeah.
we're bringing the internet back, intranet back again. But how do we source this information, make it cool, useful, helpful to people? I agree with you, Chris. It's like this is something that AI is really good at is pattern matching and being able to retrieve and source the stuff for you. So rather than just dumping everything into Notion or a Google Doc, being able to source that again, that's very important to do and in a versioned way.
Mm,
And what did Chris say here? Same question, how to implement dosing in a specific organization so that the org could use their docs to provide support. So yeah, Chris, so whether it's a like whatever format you have it in, as long as you, at least with Dosu, if you were able to put it into any of these systems, we're thinking about Dosu locally, Dosu non-cloud, on-prem, all of these other things too, to help more people out given whatever their specifications or requirements are. And so long as there is a doc or some way to capture something, we'll figure out a way with Dosu to be able to ingest that. Is my strong claim. And if people ask for it and we can help support them on that journey, that dream, very likely that's something that we'll help out with. But yeah, right now it's mostly most of the orgs that we work with, it's GitHub and Slack, either or combination of. And then we do have a web connector, so you can pull things in off the internet, but we've also got web search behind the scenes. And then other organizations, we're starting to get requests for Discord and a few others that will uh, probably add sometime soon, hopefully this year, depending on how things go. But
mm.
cool.
I have one more question. I'm curious how you so do you consume like a third party LLMs or how you basically how you put the brain to your application and how you track kind of the consume that the customer might have in terms of number of questions and in terms of what's the cost of running those services for your customers. How you do you resolve that part?
Yeah, we've had some very interesting findings on that front. Like, we'll use many all of the different LLMs and variations of them. Like, we found some interesting things with using Anthropic's models, for instance, where if we were using, I think it was Sonnet and Opus, I think it was I can't remember if it was between 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, somewhere there in there, there was, I think it was 4.6, took instructions a lot more literally. So when you asked, hey, tell me about this project, which is something that a lot of open source maintainers will ask, or people
Mm,
that will ask that the first time that they use Dosu, and then it will just write this giant report. And so it's a very costly report. And so we're like, no, we didn't want that behavior. So we roll back to 4.5, in this one case. So we've seen a lot of things like that happen. And what we've realized is that it's not so much the model. Like you could go and pay for the best model on the market right now. But what we've seen is that it all boils down to context. So long as we give a good enough instruction set, pair that with the right data, and then pair that with a capable model. And in many cases, that might be something like, Sonnet 4.6, might be something like GPT 5.4 or a smaller version.
mm,
Depends on what the ask is. And then figuring out the right model, the right context to put together to then create a delightful output. That's something that we're actively working through because you have to balance time and all these other things too. And our costs, it becomes a fun math problem on our end. But all that to say, yeah, we're constantly using many different models and always experimenting for what provides that better output, how to balance costs on that front. But that's the number one thing that we don't want to fall behind on is quality, especially as a knowledge infrastructure company. We don't want to give the wrong answer, something that's inaccurate,
mm.
that we don't want to
But
surface that to people.
basically, you have a variable cost, but on the other hand, so do you have a fixed price to your customers, or you also or you transfer the cost of your tokens to the customer? How do you resolve that part?
Candidly, that's
The question is, for example, for CNCF, let's say you have a KubeCon, so you have, I don't know, 10,000 people asking for a couple of days, a lot of questions. So that's going to basically burn a massive amount of tokens on your side. So, and the question is, do you still have like a fixed price for them, or if you're okay, kind of explaining that part? So that
course.
would be
Yeah, absolutely. It's a promise I won't get in trouble. The answer is yes, because with one of the things that we take a look at is how do we cache this knowledge too. So if you ask, what is open telemetry 3 hours ago, and then I ask now, what is open telemetry?
hmm,
We can help reduce token costs and just serve you a cached answer because we just got that a little bit ago. So Dosu and what we've built is smart enough to understand that, oh, this question is exactly the same or close enough to being the same that I can reuse all or some of this data in the response and then
hmm,
cut back on tokens effectively. And that's not what the AI or LLM providers want to do to you either, right? They want you to pay as much money as possible, use as many tokens as possible. And then a solution like Dosu allows for that variability because that we factored that into how we've built things. And then as it pertains to like customer costs, candidly, we've gone through this many times. It's pricing is always difficult. It has been at many other companies that I've worked at, and
hmm,
yeah, it's just very difficult. But right now we're fixed price, and so when it comes into enterprise contracts, if you're thinking about using Dosi at your company, what we'll take a look at is what's the expected usage in terms of pull requests or um, not so much questions, but like how many people do you think will interact with this service? And then pull requests are kind of like the usage metrics that we'll use to measure things initially. Then we might change that with the corporation, the company as time goes on too. But yeah, at this time, not usage-based billing or anything like that. Still
hmm.
static, playing around with bring your own key and some of these other things as we build out other portions of Dosu. But yeah, that's a fun ongoing conversation constantly.
Cool, cool, awesome. Okay, so do we have any questions, folks, from other than that? So yeah, so we are like over time, so it's yeah. Thank you, Taylor, very much. Thank you very much. So yeah, was yeah, it
Of
was very
course.
nice to having you here. And yeah, the session is going to be upload in the next few days. So yeah, cool, awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Chris. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you.
Have a
Bye
great
bye.
week.
Yeah, you too. Bye bye.